You're really in the way. You need to get out of the car because you're taking too much space.
What? I couldn't believe my ears when my mother-in-law said that. Ava agreed with my mother-in-law.
I know, right?
I was at the end of my patience. Okay, then you can do whatever you want from here on out. I got out of the car, and then Ava and my mother-in-law smiled with a triumphant look on their faces. After that, my mother-in-law called me on the phone.
Please, come back here right now.
My name is Amelia. I am a 34-year-old office worker. My husband, James, and I have been married for 2 years. We met at a party thrown by a friend. I've been working hard and haven't had much time for relationships. So I had not had a boyfriend for a while, and before I knew it, I was 30 years old. My friend was worried about me and invited me to a party. There I met James, who was the same age as me. Since James and I were the same age, we had a lot in common, and we had a lot of fun talking. We started seeing each other occasionally and started dating. He was kind, funny, and entertained me on our dates by making all kinds of date plans. When I was with him, I was laughing all the time, and my cheeks and stomach muscles felt like they were about to cramp. Our relationship progressed, and after 2 years, we decided to get married. Usually you meet each other's parents when you tell them you're getting married, but I had already met his parents when we were dating. Since he lived with his parents, he would sometimes invite me over to their house for dinner. So I already knew them well. They were very kind to me, and treated me like a real daughter.
Amelia, you are such a good girl. I wish you would become James' wife.
My mother-in-law would often say this, and James would get embarrassed.
Mom, don't say things like that all of a sudden. I was so surprised, I almost spat my water out.
Oh, it's fine. I'm just saying how I feel. But if you don't propose to her soon, she's going to leave you.
Hey, don't say something scary like that.
I couldn't help but giggle when I saw James getting really flustered. It makes me smile to see them as a warm and really nice family. My family wasn't like this, and I think that's why I admire them so much. My parents divorced about 18 years ago because of my father's infidelity. I was 16 years old at that time, and I really hated my father for betraying my mother. After that, I didn't trust men much anymore. I guess that's why my marriage was delayed, because I had a slight distrust of men. But I was still able to open my heart to James, and I knew that I could have a warm family with him. This feeling became even stronger when I met my in-laws at my parents-in-law's house. Then I married James. My mother cried when she saw me in my wedding dress. I hope that you can have a warm and happy life. Congratulations on getting married, Amelia. Thank you, Mom. I'm already very happy now, so don't worry about me. When my mother cried, I cried too. After the wedding ceremony, I started my married life with James. We were very happy as newlyweds. I was very happy to be in the same house with James every day, to sleep at night, and to wake up in the morning with him next to me. If I had one complaint, it was that I had to do more of the housework than he did. James can't cook at all because he's lived at home all his life. I told him to give it a try, but he was even more clumsy than I thought he was, and I thought there was going to be some kind of accident, so I decided that I would be in charge of the cooking. But it was hard to come home and cook dinner when I was very tired after working late. To be honest, it sometimes annoys me that James comes home earlier than me and I have to cook dinner while he's lying on the sofa, watching TV, in my sight. Still, James never complains about my cooking, and he doesn't complain when I work late and cook dinner late, which I appreciate. Even though we are a couple, we are both human beings, so we have our flaws and things that we don't like about each other. I thought that if we were happy for the most part, we would be a good match. So I think that my marriage with James has been more of a happy one. James is still a funny guy and we have the same interests in TV shows, so we don't have to fight over the channels. We were happily married for the next 2 years. 2 years passed and we were still living the same life as before, until one day James suddenly suggested this to me.
I think it's time we live at my parents' house.
What? I couldn't understand what James was saying at first. What do you mean? Does that mean you want to move in with your parents? I asked in surprise, and James laughed and said,
What else could it mean?
Huh? Are you serious? James was a little miffed at my reaction.
What, you don't like it?
Oh, it's not that. It was too sudden. I was just in shock. Did your mother suggest this?
Well, yes, but it's something I've been thinking about for a while. After we spent some time together as a married couple, we'd move back in with my parents.
But I had no idea that James was thinking of such a thing. And I had no idea that his in-laws were planning to move in with us too. If that was the case, he should have told me before we got married. But my in-laws are very kind, and I've been visiting them regularly since we got married. They treated me well each time, and I didn't mind living with them that much. Well, I would have liked to have a little more time alone with my husband, though. I agreed to move in with my in-laws. James was very happy we moved as soon as possible. I look forward to living here.
I'm glad you're here, Amelia. Please, come in and put your things away.
Alrighty. I grabbed my luggage and followed my mother-in-law.
This is your room starting today.
What? It was a small room, which seemed to be used as a storage room. Here?
Yes. Do you have a problem with it?
My mother-in-law looked at blankly and asked me this. I was even more surprised to see my mother-in-law looking at me like that. Oh, well, aren't James and I going to be in the same room?
He has his own room. There's no room for all your stuff. Well, you can sleep in his room at least.
I'll do that. I could not hide my confusion because my mother-in-law had lost all of her gentle atmosphere. Then seeing my bewildered face, my mother-in-law said to me with a sly smile,
Were you surprised by my sudden change in attitude? Unfortunately, this is the real me. I've been putting up an act and pretending to be a good person. I've been trying to catch you off guard.
What?
It's finally worth it that James married you.
What do you mean?
You'll find out later.
My mother-in-law was smiling wryly. I became anxious about my future life living in this house. And the next day, it began.
Amelia, how long are you going to stay in bed? Hurry up and get up and do the housework.
My mother-in-law yells at me to wake up.
The time is 4 o'clock in the morning. When I was puzzled as to why I had been woken up at such an early hour, my mother-in-law ordered me to move the garden, prepare breakfast, and pack lunch for my husband. I couldn't refuse her, and did as I was.
I worked hard all morning and was exhausted by the time James and my father-in-law woke up. My mother-in-law would complain to me,
What's the matter with this food? It doesn't taste very good. Or, you really are a terrible cook.
I looked at James and my father-in-law to ask them for help, but they both looked at me like they didn't know me, and I despaired. At this point, I wondered if I was being forced to live with my in-laws to be treated like a slave. No, I was almost certain of that. I had already resigned from my job at the time of moving in with my in-laws, after James has urged me to quit my job. This meant that I would have to be a stay-at-home mom doing housework all day, long under my mother-in-law's watchful eye. James probably discussed this with his mother to have this happen. When I realized this, I despaired. I had no idea that James and my in-laws had colluded to do that. My mother-in-law made me work all day long as if she had found herself a slave. If she didn't like something, she would complain about it until she got her way. When she got tired of it, she would make me do all the hard work while she lounged on the couch. I was extremely angry to see my mother-in-law lying down comfortably while I was so exhausted. But if I tried to complain, my mother-in-law would get very angry with me. So I had no choice but to obey my mother-in-law. But anyway, I asked James that night to find out what was really going on. Hey, your mother has been very rude to me. Did she propose moving in with you in order to bully me from the beginning? Well, now that I think about it, it was too direct a question, but I still had to confirm it with James. But James' eyes widened and he got angry.
Huh? What the hell are you saying? Do you think I told my mom I wanted to move in with her so that she can do whatever she wanted with you?
No, that's not what I meant.
That's outrageous. Are you messing with me?
Hold on. That's not what I wanted to say. James wouldn't listen to me, no matter how hard I tried to clear up the misunderstanding. And it was only after that James began to speak harshly to me too.
You're right, Mom. Amelia's cooking is terrible. I get that you used to work, but now that you're a housewife, you're going to have to make something a little more decent.
Yeah, exactly. You're a useless housewife.
That's how my mother-in-law and James got together and abused me. I instantly wanted to move out of the house, but I was unemployed and retired, so couldn't leave so easily. Then my mother-in-law and James continued to abuse me, and a month had passed after moving in. And then another person appeared in front of me who frustrated me even more. It was my sister-in-law, Ava. Ava got married before James and I did, and I already had 2 children. But when she heard that James and I had moved in with my parents-in-law, she started coming over to get me to babysit her kids.
I'll leave it to you again today.
Ava brought her children here, and my mother-in-law accepted it as a matter of course, but of course I was the one who took care of the children. Ava's children are 5 and 4 years old, both boys, and they are very naughty, and it is really hard to take care of them. On top of that, I have to do all the housework, so no matter how much energy I have, it's not enough. I was exhausted, both physically and mentally, from being pushed around. And in the midst of all this, my in-laws planned a family vacation. They wanted to celebrate my mother-in-law's 60th birthday in a big way. I thought I would be staying at home, but my husband appointed me as the driver.
Dad isn't allowed to drive because of his leg injury last year, so you have to drive. Neither Mom nor Ava have a driver's license.
I wanted to stay home alone if possible, but if I refused, there would be trouble later, so I had no choice but to obey. 1 month later, the day of the family trip to celebrate my mother-in-law's 60th birthday has arrived. The destination was a resort, a few hours' drive away. We left early in the morning and I drove the car. My in-laws were sleeping in the back seat while I drove. I managed to suppress my frustration and drove for a while, and about 2 hours passed. James woke up and said,
I need to go to the bathroom and get something to eat, so stop somewhere.
I wanted to say, don't order me around, but I had no choice but to find a store and stop. My in-laws all probably would go to the bathroom or something as well. I thought I'd take a nap in the meantime, but only my father-in-law and James got out of the car. My mother-in-law and Ava stayed in the car and asked James to get them a drink. The most troublesome people were left in the car, and my mother-in-law and Ava had been asleep the whole time, so they were wide awake now. They took this opportunity to curse at me.
You're a terrible driver. I couldn't sleep well at all.
Stop lying, you were sound asleep. Your snoring was so loud.
You can't do your chores, you can't drive. You're useless. I mean, why are you even driving? You're really in the way. You need to get out of the car because you're taking too much space.
What? I couldn't believe my ears when my mother-in-law said that.
Ava agreed with my mother-in-law.
I know, right? Get out already.
I was at the end of my patience,
And I thought, this is my chance.
if I were to leave now, they would be very troubled.
Okay, then you can do whatever you want from here on out.
I got out of the car, and then Ava
And my mother-in-law smiled with a triumphant look on their faces. They probably hadn't made a reservation for me at the resort anyways. I immediately hitchhiked away from the place. It was a bit dangerous, but I wanted to get away from there as soon as possible. Later, my mother-in-law called me multiple times. Since I was in someone else's car, I completely ignored the call. After that, the phone rang a lot, but I continued to ignore it. And when I got back to my in-laws' house a few hours later, I finally picked up the phone. Hello, what's wrong?
Why didn't you pick up the phone? Where are you?
I'm at home.
Huh? What are you doing?
What do you mean? You're the one who kicked me out of the car. I only came home because you kicked me out. When I said that, my mother-in-law went silent. Can I go now? I'm hanging up now.
Wait! Please, come back here right now.
Huh? You kicked me out, didn't you? Why do you want me to come back?
I didn't know James couldn't drive until now. I didn't think you were the one who could drive.
Oh, I see. James is too prideful, so he didn't want to tell you guys about it. James actually had his license suspended for repeated speeding violations before we moved in with his parents. That's why he can't drive now. James, when he goes for a drive with his friends, seems to change and get carried away. He was acting really cocky, huh? It's so pathetic that he got a speeding ticket. As I was laughing at him, James got on the phone.
Are you making fun of me? You're so cocky, even for a wife. I won't let you get away with this when we get back.
James' angry voice rang out over the phone. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I won't be here when you guys get back.
Huh?
I'm leaving the divorce papers here.
Oh, hold on. Divorce? What?
You guys were driving me crazy, and I was exhausted, both physically and mentally. So, I decided to leave you. Your mother treated me like I was a burden, and your father didn't seem to care whether I was there or not. So, it wouldn't have mattered if I left, would it?
I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not getting a divorce.
You don't get to decide. I have audio recordings and kept a diary of the times when you and your mother were badgering me. I showed it to my lawyer, and he told me that I could file for alimony and get a divorce on the grounds that my husband was responsible for the harassment.
What? Alimony?
He told me that once you come back from your trip, I file for divorce.
No way!
James is on the phone, and he is absolutely speechless. I told them what I needed to tell them, and I could hear that they were beginning to panic, so I hung up the phone. I put down the divorce papers and hurriedly packed up my belongings and went back to my parents' house. I had told my mother everything on the phone on the way back from my trip, and she said it was the right thing to do to get rid of them, and allowed me to come back. After returning home, I immediately contacted a lawyer. I had them prepare for the divorce process as soon as possible. I was getting tons of phone calls and texts from James and my mother-in-law, but I ignored them. The messages said, "We had to hire a chauffeur to drive us to our destination on short notice, and it cost me a hell of a lot of money. And what are we going to do on the way home?" I could tell they were in trouble, and I thought to myself, that's what they get. After that, I immediately filed a divorce suit against James through my lawyer, and I also demanded for compensation for the moral harassment. I sent a content-certified letter to James' workplace, and he immediately responded. According to my lawyer, James was angry that people at his workplace found out about it, because I sent it to his office, but that was also part of my plan. I had heard rumors that James had a reputation at work as a loving husband, so I decided to let them know, including a warning that he was a liar, and that he should beware of him. As a result, I was able to get a divorce and alimony was paid. I heard that James is now getting cold stares from people at work because of this incident, and he is feeling a bit ashamed. But he can't quit his job because he has to pay the alimony. My ex-mother-in-law had to do housework again because she didn't have me to do the work anymore, and Ava still came to their house to ask them to take care of her kids, which resulted in my ex-mother-in-law getting a bad back. Since then, she has had to go to the hospital because of her back problems. Also, Ava was having an affair. It was discovered that she had left her child with her parents in order to go on dates with other men during the daytime. Her husband divorced her and demanded alimony. Ava turned to her parents for help, but her mother was furious with Ava because she hurt her back taking care of her children that she had left with her to go on dates. James texted me and asked me to get back together with him, but I blocked his number and ignored it. Right now, I am living with my mother and found a new job, and I am doing well. I'm not looking for a relationship or marriage for a while, so I'm going to cherish the time I get to spend with my mom now.